All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into the world of commercial debt collection.
Debt collection, huh?
Yeah. But trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds.
More interesting than staring at spreadsheets all day. You've got my attention.
Exactly. We're talking strategy, psychology, the whole 9 yards.
It's about navigating that tricky space between a signed contract and, well, actually getting paid, right?
You hit the nail on the head. And to help us understand this fascinating world, we're joined by, well, you already know who you are.
Let's just say I've seen the ins and outs of debt collection.
Which makes you the perfect guide. So, to kick things off, I gotta ask, Burton Associates, they claim a debt recovery rate 33% higher than the industry average.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold claim.
It is. What's the secret sauce? How do they do it?
Well, for starters, they're not just some run-of-the-mill collection agency. They've got specialized knowledge.
Specialized? In what way?
Think legal frameworks, industry-specific quirks, you name it. They know their stuff.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Every case is different, and they tailor their strategies accordingly.
So they're like financial detectives piecing together the puzzle of each debt?
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
They're all about uncovering the truth and finding the best way to recover those funds.
Now, before we get to a real-world example, what kind of services do these debt collection agencies actually offer?
Oh, it's more than just making phone calls, I can tell you that.
Yeah, like what?
Well, you've got your debtor investigation.
Debtor investigation? Sounds intense.
It can be. They're digging into assets, financial standing, figuring out what the debtor's working with, basically.
So it's all about getting a clear picture of the situation before taking any action.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right? Then there's Bankruptcy Watch, which is pretty self-explanatory.
Keeping an eye on any changes in the debtor's financial status that might complicate things.
You got it. They're staying one step ahead, always. But one thing that caught my eye on Burton Associates' website was this whole diplomatic arbitration thing.
Diplomatic arbitration? Yeah, it sounds a little out of place, doesn't it?
Right, like way too civilized for debt collection. What's that about?
Well, that's what I'm hoping you can shed some light on.
Well, it seems like they're all about preserving relationships. Finding
Yeah.
common ground, hammering out solutions, that sort of thing.
Because sometimes it's better to build a bridge than burn one, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Especially in certain industries where your reputation is everything.
You're talking about, like, the plumbing industry, for example.
How'd you know?
Maybe I'm psychic. But in all seriousness, our case study today actually involves, you guessed it, plumbers.
All right, you got me there.
Eh.
I didn't see that coming.
So let's talk plumbing. Give us the lowdown on this case.
Okay, picture this. Alpha Plumbing Solutions versus Beta Plumbing Contractors. Alpha is owed a whopping $75,000 for services rendered.
Wow, that's not chump change.
Not at all. And to make matters worse, the debt was already over a year old when Burton Associates stepped in.
A year old. Why is that such a big deal?
Think of it like this. The older a debt gets, the harder it is to collect.
Like a fine wine. It gets better with age.
Definitely not. More like that carton of milk in the back of your fridge. The longer it sits there, the worse it gets.
So, in the world of debt collection, procrastination is not your friend.
You got it. The clock is ticking, and every day that passes makes it harder to recover that money.
So, time is of the essence. But how did Burton Associates tackle this plumbing predicament? What was their game plan?
Well, they didn't rush in guns blazing, if that's what you're thinking.
No.
Nope. They kicked things off in August 2012 with, well, communication. Good old-fashioned communication.
Okay, but I'm guessing it wasn't just a casual, hey, remember that money you owe us?
You're right. It was structured. They had a plan.
A plan. Tell me more.
They outlined a clear roadmap for resolving the debt, setting firm expectations for repayment right from the get-go.
So it's about laying down the law, but in a way that doesn't alienate the debtor?
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Because you're not just trying to win a case. You're trying to maintain a working relationship, if possible.
Right. Especially in a field like plumbing where word of mouth is everything.
So tell me more about this structured communication. What did it actually look like in practice?
Well, it wasn't carrier pigeons or anything.
Oh, carrier pigeons. Darn.
They initiated contact, laid out their plan, and then this is key, they followed up consistently.
Phone calls, emails, the whole shebang.
You got it. Keeping the debt top of mind for the debtor, demonstrating that they were serious about getting results.
So persistence is key.
Absolutely. But it's more than just nagging. It's about being strategic, understanding how to communicate effectively in a high-stakes situation.
And I'm assuming this approach extended to the payment plan they negotiated.
You know it. They hammered out a partial payment agreement where Beta Plumbing would make monthly installments of $1,000.
Smart move. That keeps some cash flowing for Alpha Plumbing while they work towards getting the full amount.
Right? A win-win, you'd think?
So what's the catch?
Well, this case, it wasn't exactly a walk in the park. It dragged on for a full year, August 2012 to August 2013.
A whole year.
Yeah, and trust me, there were some bumps in the road along the way.
Bumps in the road, huh? Sounds ominous. Spill the beans. What kind of bumps are we talking about?
Well, let's just say that keeping a payment plan on track, it's not always easy.
I can imagine. So what happens when, say, a payment is late? Does Burton Associates just go into attack mode?
No, not at all. Remember, their whole thing is about preserving those business relationships whenever possible.
Right. Build bridges, not burn them.
Exactly. So when a payment was late, they'd reach out, but not with accusations or threats.
More like, hey, is everything okay? Just checking in.
Exactly. They wanted to understand what was going on, see if there were any hiccups they could help smooth out.
Because sometimes things happen, right? Cash flow issues, unexpected expenses.
Exactly. Real life doesn't always follow a neat and tidy payment schedule.
So they had to be adaptable, willing to adjust on the fly.
Precisely. There were times when they had to renegotiate the payment terms, maybe tweak the monthly amount, push back a due date, that sort of thing.
And through it all, they kept Alpha Plumbing in the loop, making sure everyone was on the same page.
Absolutely. Communication is key, remember. They weren't just working behind the scenes. They were keeping Alpha Plumbing informed every step of the way. It's all about transparency and building trust.
Okay, so they're dealing with late payments, renegotiating terms. Sounds like they had their work cut out for them. But at the end of the day, did this approach actually work? Did Alpha Plumbing ever see their $75,000?
You're not going to believe this.
What? Tell me.
They recovered every single penny.
No way! After a year of chasing payments, renegotiating terms, they actually pulled it off.
They did. It just goes to show patience and persistence, they really do pay off.
That's an amazing turnaround. But what about Beta Plumbing? Did they survive this whole ordeal? And more importantly, did they ever speak to Alpha Plumbing again?
That's the best part. See, Burton Associates, they're not just about collecting debts. They're about finding solutions that work for everyone.
So it's a win-win.
Exactly. Beta Plumbing, they were able to honor the payment agreement, get back on track, and most importantly, maintain that crucial business relationship with Alpha Plumbing.
So everyone came out on top. That's incredible. It sounds like Burton Associates, they're not just debt collectors, they're practically negotiators and mediators rolled into one.
You could say that.
Yeah.
They understand that in the business world, relationships are everything.
Because you never know when you might need to do business with someone again.
Exactly. Burning bridges is rarely the answer.
This case study has been a goldmine of information, but I feel like you're about to drop some serious wisdom on us right now. What are the key takeaways listeners should remember, especially if they ever find themselves facing a debt-related challenge?
Oh, absolutely. First things first, don't wait. Time is not your friend when it comes to debt collection.
Right, that carton of milk isn't getting any fresher.
Exactly. The sooner you address a debt, the better your chances of recovering the full amount.
So early intervention is key.
100%. And when you do reach out, remember everything we talked about. Clear communication, a willingness to listen and be flexible, and above all, respect.
Even when you're dealing with someone who owes you money.
Especially then. Remember, you're trying to resolve a situation, not start a war. And finally, don't underestimate the power of a structured approach.
Like Burton Associates did with their communication plan.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Having a clear roadmap, setting expectations, and sticking to it, it makes a world of difference.
It's funny, we're talking about commercial debt collection like it's its own world.
Right.
But these strategies, the communication, the planning, those are valuable skills no matter what you do.
100%. Whether you're dealing with a business or, even in your personal life.
Exactly. Like they say, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Totally. It's about building relationships, not burning them.
Speaking of, you mentioned a contingency-based model earlier and how Burt and Associates uses it. How does that actually work?
It's actually pretty straightforward. The agency, they only get paid if they collect the debt.
So no win, no fee.
Basically. It keeps everyone's interests aligned.
Makes sense. Shows they're invested in the outcome, just like their clients.
Exactly.
This whole deep dive has been fascinating, but before we wrap things up, gotta ask, what's the one big takeaway you hope listeners walk away with?
That's a tough one. I think for me, it always comes back to relationships.
Relationships.
Yeah. We think of debt collection as this adversarial thing, right?
Right.
But it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It's about finding solutions that work for everyone, keeping those lines of communication open.
Because at the end of the day, business is about people, isn't it?
Absolutely. And sometimes, working through a debt, it can actually strengthen those connections.
Who knew you could find a silver lining in debt collection? That's amazing. Well, there you have it, folks, our deep dive into the world of commercial debt collection. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Strategic insights, communication tips, even got a little plumbing drama in the mix.
Never a dull moment.
That's for sure. And to our listeners, next time you're facing a debt-related challenge, take a breath.
Take a breath.
Remember the lessons we've talked about today? Clear communication, a little empathy. You might be surprised at the results.
Couldn't agree more.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.